reading this finally make you feel like you have worked beyond your accomplishments? Does she have depression? How does she actually feel about her mother? If you're tired of romance being the only relationship type that's celebrated in the media you consume, so we have The End of the World, The Antichrist, War, Famine, Death, a potential nuclear disaster. Both of those books deal with themes of self-awareness, or lack thereof. Is it meant to be this painful? Hello everyone, welcome back to the Unfortunate Archives. I am very excited today because I want to make you question your entire coping mechanisms and, if I'm lucky and do really well, your entire existence. And we're also here for book recommendations, obviously. This is a serious issue, so I'm gonna put on my serious clothes. Okay, tell me, what's wrong with you? Oh. Oh. Give me a second. Ooh. Right, so that gave me a good picture. I got you! Is your back okay? I hope it's not hurting too much from carrying everyone else's responsibilities because they can't do a good job anyway. Obviously, we need to find a critically acclaimed book because if you read something just for your enjoyment, then really you're wasting time that you could be spending on more important endeavors, right? I'm recommending you my #1 book from last year, Tomorrow, Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This book follows two childhood friends, Sam and Sadie, who run into each other in college and reunite. They pour their hearts and souls into creating this video game that becomes a huge success. This launches them into co-founding their massive video game company, and the book follows them across the years as the relationship changes and grows. I'm not a gamer, though gaming might appeal to you since you can rewind and redo a level until you do it perfectly. But anyway, that doesn't really matter, because at its heart, this book is about two collaborating artists, and it will appeal to anyone who appreciates any form of creation, getting lost in other worlds, and the complexities of human relationships. Sam and Sadie have one of the most interesting relationships that I've ever read in fiction. If you're tired of romance being the only relationship type that's celebrated in the media you consume, then you'll really like this. I would also recommend this if you like a little life, but a lot less sad. If you like the TV show Mythic Quest, but a lot more sad. And if you like reading a whole novel in a single sitting. It's that good. I mean, if you're spending the time on reading, you might as well read the best possible book, right? I would also recommend that you check the trigger warnings before reading this book and maybe give it a pass if you don't want to read about car accidents, amputation, shootings, death, or mentions of suicide. Oh look, the sun came out! Beauty, joy, vitamins. This book is also about two artists who make their accomplishments their point of existing and have very high standards. Maybe that sounds familiar. My perfectionistic friends, will reading this finally make you feel like you have worked beyond your accomplishments? Doubtful. However, not reading this will definitely give you something new to beat yourself over the head with, so you might as well do it. Also, if you're keeping a detailed list of everything that I could be doing better in this video, then I would really appreciate having it. Thank you. My social chameleons, I'm surprised you made it here today, given how many unnecessary requests and favors you've said yes to recently. But I appreciate you. I mean, I might be one of the only ones who does. In return for your time, you're the only group who gets 2 book recommendations, because I thought it was nice to give you a choice for once. As a bonus, you don't even need to say that you prefer whichever one I prefer. Crazy. The first book that I'm recommending is Mame by Jessica George. Mame follows Maddie, a mid-20s girl with Ghanaian heritage who is living in London, with a mother who spends large amounts of time abroad and a brother who is kind of a groupie for a living. Maddie is the one who's been staying at home and taking care of her father who has Parkinson's. However, when her mother comes to London for an unexpected visit, Maddie decides that it's finally time to live a little for herself. Maddie is a chronic people pleaser, and she spent all of her life being a carer not just to her dad, but to everyone around her. This book is set at a point in her life when she's finally starting to question things. Things like, does she have depression? How does she actually feel about her mother? Are her boss and the man she's dating racist? Is she ready to have sex for the first time? And is it meant to be this painful? Ooh. This is really a coming of age story for your mid-20s, and I think we need more of them because I'm still waiting to come of age and there's no sign in sight. This is one of those voice-heavy stories where you get a deep study of the main character's internal world. You get to know Maddie really well, probably better than you let anyone know the real you. There are a few kind of questionable passages about bisexuality in this book, which are mainly framed as Maddie being a bit ignorant, but still not great. You might also want to give this a pass if you don't want to read about grief or about painful and uncomfortable sexual experiences. Finally, this book uses this thing when Maddie goes and Google questions like how to get ready for a date. And then the book kind of goes through the responses, which is humorous, and it's a way of showing her naivety. I swear I know. Which is also a way of showing how naive she is. However, it felt a little overused by the end. Despite these points, I really liked this book, and I would recommend this if you like reading about family dynamics and how they really shape who we are. If you're interested in reading about the experience of being Black and living, working, and dating in the UK, because often we get this perspective but set in the US, and it's interesting to see how things are different and also the same. I would also recommend this for a decent fictional representation of depression and grief, and for reading about characters going to therapy, potentially to address their people-pleasing tendencies. There is construction outside of my window. Maybe you already know because you can hear it and you're very annoyed. But I don't care about pleasing you. I mean, I actually do. Please continue watching. I would very much appreciate it. Anyway, my second recommendation is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood, who you might know as the TikTok famous author of The Love Hypothesis. The Love Hypothesis. Love Theoretically follows Elsie, a theoretical physicist. Love Theoretically follows Elsie, a physicist. Love Theoretically follows Elsie, a struggling theoretical physicist. To make rent, Elsie has found this gig where she's the fake date for hire. So essentially, if someone needs a date for a family gathering or a work function, they get to take her for money. This is the perfect job for Elsie because she's really great at being whatever other people want her to be. Except when she goes for an important job interview as a professor, she finds that on the panel is the only person she's never been able to fool. This is the handsome and grumpy brother of a boy that she's currently fake dating. And of course, he knows her as a simple librarian and definitely not a rising star in physics. To be honest with you, I was a bit on the fence about this book, but I also say no more easily than yes. So, my problem with the book was the sheer quirkiness. Elsie is very quirky, and you know this because she talks about how much she likes cheese and the Twilight series an alarming amount, to the exclusion of all other likes, interests, and hobbies. Meanwhile, Jack, the male lead, is very, very big, and that's not a euphemism. Is just very tall, and you have to be okay with being reminded of this on every page for the first few chapters and every other page after this. At some point, he is described as towering over Elsie like a towering tower. This is a direct quote, which is obviously a joke, but you know. These aren't huge issues, but I just teetered a little too much on the edge of eye rolls and cringes to be fully invested in the story, but I still liked it. The romance is pretty unproblematic, and that can be rare to find. Also, it's unique in the way that it's between a chronic people pleaser and someone who sees right through her, knows her real self, and loves her anyway. Terrifying? Intriguing? Wish fulfillment? Hello, students, professionals, and professional chore avoiders. I'm not surprised you guys are here at all. Let's look for a book that you can't put down, because we all know what happens if you do. In fact, just to be safe, let's find a book you can read in one sitting. For you, I recommend Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. Yellowface follows June, a self-proclaimed basic white girl who is failing as an aspiring author. Meanwhile, her Chinese-American friend Athena is a rising literary star. Things get interesting when her friend dies in a freak accident. Apologies to my friends who are watching this video. I don't think that's interesting. When her friend dies in a freak accident, June finds her finished and unpublished manuscript that's about Chinese laborers in World War I. What does June do with this unseen manuscript? She edits it and sends it to her agent under her own name. And of course, it gets published under an ethnically ambiguous. And of course, it gets published under an ethnically ambiguous. It gets published under an ethnically ambiguous name and author photo, and hits the bestseller list. However, just when things are going well for June, evidence keeps popping up about who the manuscript really belonged to, and we can't forget the questions about whether a basic white girl should have really written a story about mainly Chinese characters anyway. If you're in the literary community or in the art world in general, you'll find so many familiar discourses mentioned in this book. Things like cultural appropriation, plagiarism, benefiting off of other people's pain and trauma, racism in the publishing industry, cancel culture, and who has the right to tell what stories and why. When I was reading this book and had a brief moment to come up for air, I kept thinking about all the drama that surrounded books like A Little Life, My Dark Vanessa, American Dirt, and that just added a new layer to the book. But don't worry about any of that. Beyond all of that, this book is just incredibly fun. It's scathing, it's hilarious, disturbing, and it's compulsively readable. I couldn't put it down. So I guess we know why I'm recommending it here to you guys. Besides, think about all the internet rabbit holes you can go down when you finish this book and want to learn more about the literary drama. The opportunities for reallocating time from all your responsibilities is enormous. The characterization of June as the protagonist is brilliant. On one page, she says this about another author. She says, he's a wealthy, attractive, cishet white guy. He has endless rooms for failure. The world will afford me no such lenience. However, when it comes to the fact that she is a young, wealthy, cishet, attractive white woman, she has a lot to say about how the publishing industry is obsessed with diversity and someone like her is not set up for success. The book is filled with similar moments of irony and they really make it hilarious. At times, she is so self-deceiving and ignorant that she comes off as a little caricaturish, but it never goes too far. Her love for writing, the glimpses into her past and family life, and her genuine moments of guilt and shame give her a character that extra level of complexity. If I had one critique of this book, it would be that the ending is a little too unrealistic and jarring in terms of tone, but I loved so much about this book that I could look past that pretty easily. If you have any interest in the publishing industry and the ethics of storytelling, then this is brilliant for you. However, you will like this if you just have a good sense of humor. Besides, it's only a little over 300 pages and it's very fast-paced. So hopefully it can distract you from the churning anxiety that's trying to remind you of all the responsibilities that you're putting off. Hello, pessimists. I hope this video has briefly distracted you from the void that is existence. Because, let's be honest, what are the chances that I, a complete stranger on the internet, can recommend you a book that you'd actually like? I mean, you're an intellectual like all of your kind. You're not a pessimist, you're just a realist. You're really good at understanding likelihoods. So you can probably calculate the undoubtedly infinitesimal odds of something good coming out of this video. But hey, at least since you already expect a worse, you don't have to face the possibility of real disappointment. For you, my recommendation is Good Omens, The Nice and Accurate Prophecies of Agnes Nutter, Witch, by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. This book opens with the birth of the Antichrist, which ushers in the end of the world. Very promising start, isn't it? The baby is given to a demon, Crawley, who is meant to give the baby to a diplomat who can raise him before he's ready to end the world. However, Crawley's gotten a little too used to the comforts of living among humans. So after he delivers the baby, he finds his old acquaintance, an angel, who feels the same way about humanity. And they decide to work together to influence the boy as he is growing up to prevent the end of the world. However, there may have been a mistake made in the hospital regarding which baby went where. And also, the four horsemen of the apocalypse are waking up and creating a whole bunch of other complications. So we have the end of the world, the Antichrist, war, famine, death, a potential nuclear disaster, and hospitals making huge mistakes. I would call that the perfect book for you, little pessimist. However, I know that me saying that is not enough for you to believe it, so I have actual evidence in the form of quotes from the book. At one point in this book, aliens show up and they say things like, well, I'm sorry to have to tell you, sir, that your polar ice caps are below regulation size for a planet of this category, sir. And also things like, you do know you could find yourself charged with being a dominant species while under the influence of impulse-driven consumerism, don't you? And most importantly, and this one's not from aliens, you grow up reading about pirates and cowboys and spacemen and stuff, and just when you think the world's all full of amazing things, they tell you it's really all dead whales and chopped down forests and nuclear waste hanging about for millions of years. That's not worth growing up for, if you ask my opinion. You have my permission to frame this quote. There is so much to love about this book, the crazy plot and the snarky British humor. However, the heart of the book is really about the relationship between the demon Crowley and the angel Aziraphale. Maybe that's the name, potential. The sad fact is they actually have surprisingly few scenes together in the book, but the scenes they do have are amazing and they're the most memorable parts of the book. If I could change one thing, I would make the relationship even more central in the story. And that's what I've heard they've done in the TV show adaptation, which I haven't watched, but I heard good things about. Now, Pessimist, if you need even more reasons to read this book, both Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett are legends. You might know Neil Gaiman from Neverwhere, American Gods, Stardust, Ocean at the End of the Lane, The Sandman, the list just goes on. And you might know Terry Pratchett from Discworld. I tend to either love their books or don't understand them at all. However, at their best, they're both incredibly imaginative, intelligent, and very funny authors. And this book just proves that the writings go flawlessly together. Also, I realize that I'm speaking in present tense, but Terry Pratchett has passed away. So, will reading this book make it less likely that we will all perish in terrible environmental disasters as a result of rising sea levels and horrible climate change? No. Will it potentially distract you a little bit from thinking about that? Maybe, maybe not. If you don't think you have any issues, then I would refer you to the section on Mame for people pleasers or Yellowface for procrastinators, because both of those books deal with themes of self-awareness or lack thereof. There you have it, friends. Thank you for joining me today. Is it a good idea to watch a YouTube video about book recommendations for your issues instead of going and seeking actual professional help? Probably not. Do I appreciate it? Very much so. If you like and subscribe, will it fix your issues? No. Will it give me a lot of external validation that I need? Yeah. So please do. And I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye! My camera does this super fun and not at all annoying thing when it just cuts off in the middle of recording, and I don't have enough knowledge to figure out why. If you sense any, underlying rage behind this, it's because of that. Am I in focus? How would I know? You're not a pessimist. Oh no, you're not. Is Mame. Forgot the name of the author. How? Oh, it's. The romance relationship. Chinese laborers in World War. Motorcycle. Motorcycle. I can admit to my issues. I have a lot of issues. For example, I often mix gold and silver, and I've been told not to do that. So